Hey everybody, Heather here from Heather's Hobby Haven, and today we're going to be coloring our November watercoloring card kit. And this month's kit features the Bells and Whistles stamp, Clowning Around. It's a clear acrylic stamp, looks really cute. And we're going to make this card. Got some great new, my favorite things, prima donna flowers on here, really cute. So let's get started. Alright, so I've already stamped my image on Canson 140 pound watercolor paper with Ranger Jet Black Archival ink. And I'm going to start by shadowing my image with weathered wood. And so I'm going to grab me a little bit of my weathered wood on the end of my paintbrush. And I'm using a detail water paintbrush today. But I've just got a little bit on there, and I'm going to start by going right along the side for arm. And then as I get my little line on there, I'm going to wipe the excess ink off of my brush, and I'm just going to use the water in my brush to spread my line out so it doesn't have a big spot right there. I want it to come out here into my image onto my paper so that there's nothing left. So there's not going to be a big, huge, harsh line sitting right next to my image. So that looks pretty good. And there's hardly any line left there. So I'm going to do that all the way around the outside of my image. So for her face, we're going to use, I'm going to use Tattered Rose. So I'm going to just grab me a little dab of that. And because she's a clown, I don't want it to be too dark. So I'm just going to put a little bit on. And I'm going to start up here at the top of her face and just work it down into between her lips here and between her little cute little cheeks she's got. Just to give her a little bit of color. And I'm also going to make sure to get her little bit of neck she's got right here, and she's got a little patch of her arm that's sticking out of her sleeve. Okay, and then I'm going to do her hair, and I'm going to start with antique linen. And I'm going to do her whole hair with that, and I'm just going to put this little bit on. It looks pretty dark when you first put it on, but if you just use that little bit and spread it clear over all of her hair, then when it gets done it looks more, instead of a greenish brown color, it fades out to a kind of a light yellow, old-fashioned-ish color. And you may have to grab a little bit more. Like on this side, I'm going to put a little bit more on there, but it does look green when you first put it on. But if you just continue working it around on your part, on her hair, and it's just for a base color, it'll lighten it up and seem more of a blondish color on there. Okay, and I do let it dry in between layers, so I've let my antique linen dry, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little color with Vintage Photo. So I'm going to grab me just a little small amount, and I'm going to start up here at the top of her ponytail, and I'm going to work a little bit right next to her little hair scrunchie, and then just kind of pull it down, thinking where I would want it to be the darkest. But still, I'm going to color the rest of her hair just to add a little bit of tint in there. And you'll go back after this is dried and put maybe a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with the other ponytail. So I've got me a little bit of my Vintage Photo, and I'm going to stripe right above her hair scrunchie. I'm going to work it down here a little bit, maybe into some of these curls where they curl under. And then if I have a little bit too much on my brush, I'm going to wipe that off, and then I'll come back with just water and kind of move it around a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing for her part. I'm going to put a little bit of my Vintage Photo on her part, and then I'm going to use that I've put down to just kind of give it a little bit of shading in here. I'm just going to work it with just my water. Maybe give a little bit down here underneath. Same for this side. And I let it dry in between the layers, so I've let it dry in between. I stopped the video and let it dry a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and add a little bit more shadows, or if you like it the first way through, if you use a lot of paint the first time, then maybe you don't need to come back. I just didn't have very much ink on my brush, so I'm going to come back and put a little bit more on top of it. And I tend to not have enough paint on my brush. Okay, for her outfit, I'm going to start with pine needles. So it's kind of a bluish green color, so I'm going to grab me a little bit of my pine needles off of my paint palette onto my brush. And I'm going to start where I want it to be darkest. I'm going to turn my girl around here a little bit. And I want it to be darkest. I want to start with it to be dark right here in between her outfit legs. I'm just going to wipe my line right along that, and then I'm going to use the ink that's left on my brush to work it out so that it kind of lightens up as it goes out towards the edge. And same for on this side. Let's work a little bit of that. And you may have to, you know, give your brush a little bit of a squeeze or get it wet if you're using a regular brush. And just work it so that it lightens it up. Takes up a little bit of this little space out here. And when I have just a little bit of paint on my brush, I may go over some of these little spots, this little highlight spot right here, just to give it a little bit of a green bluish tint. Same with this side. Work this side around, but use a little bit of my paint on my brush just to color that little spot in a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to grab me a little bit more. And this time I'm going to go down the side of her arm right here. So I'm going to lay my color down here along her arm and down to her foot. And then my brush is pretty much run out of ink by the time I got to the bottom. So I'm going to use just that little bit that's still on there to spread it around. And then again, when I get to my little paint spot, my little highlighter area, when I just have a little bit of color on my brush, I'm just going to wipe over that to give it a little bit of a bluish green tint. Okay. And then I'm going to grab me some more, my pine needles, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to go down her arm. And use that paint to fill in this rest of her outfit over here on her arm. So she's got a little bit of color on there, but I'm going to get a little, I missed a little spot up here by her neck, so I'm going to get a little bit of paint on my brush. I'm just going to get right up real close. Try not to get it all over that bow. And I'm going to do the same thing for underneath the bow. I'm going to put a little bit in there. When I was spreading my paint that was left over on my brush out, it didn't quite reach that area. And so go down here, get in between the little balls on her outfit. And again, I let that whole thing dry, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some color where I want it to be a little bit darker. So I'll go grab me a little bit more, and I'm going to add a little bit more down here on the bottom of her legs.